to my channel. My name is Tolu. I'm a Christian dating coach and I specialize in showing single Christian women how to go from single to married in a year. So I wanted to do a Q&A session, just answering questions around your dating experience, any particular questions around relationship, men, talking to men, going on dates, that kind of stuff. So this is only for you if you are live, by the way. Don't send me questions after this or send it to my email. This is specifically for those that are just joining me live. And if you have any questions for me, drop it in the question box. Make sure it's curated, straight to the point, just so it's easier for me to understand your particular situation and how best to advise you. Okay? And if you want to work with me one-on-one to go from single to married in a year, you want to understand what you're doing wrong in dating, you want to start dating in a way that actually leads you to marriage, then click the link in my bio and first tab to apply to work with me. So let me know in the question box if you have any questions. But what I'm going to do first is just generally answer some issues I've seen in reviewing applications to work with me. First thing I will say is, if you've been talking to a guy and it feels like you're not making any progress, he's not taking you on dates, he's not wanting to commit to you, it's very clear that he definitely doesn't see a future with you. Men are not complicated. They're actually very simple to understand. Whatever he's doing is how he feels. It's that simple. Just remember that. Whatever he's doing is how he feels about you. So if he's not doing certain things, it means he doesn't feel that way about you. If you've been talking to him for months and he's not taking you on dates, it means he doesn't see you as someone that is worth taking on dates. If he is refusing to commit to you in a relationship, although you guys have been together for months and years, whatever the case may be, it's because he doesn't see that with you. If he doesn't want to discuss marriage, you guys are in a relationship and it seems like it's been dragging for years, it's because he doesn't want to marry you. It's really that simple. Men are not complicated. Which is why, when I'm working with clients, my focus is on, let's make sure you're available to men that do want to do those things. Because those are the men that are going to marry you within a year anyway. So, let's eliminate the options of men that are not serious as soon as possible. So first step with my clients is learning how to eliminate. What do I mean by that? Learning how to make sure you're not giving your time, your attention, your emotion, your curiosity to men that are just not meeting the basic requirements, men that can't hold a conversation, men that are struggling to get into, to find time to take you on dates, men that are not willing to share information about themselves with you, men that are not curious about your life. It's because they don't want to get invested in that way. It's not because you're not interesting or because he went through a traumatic relationship or because he needs more time. He legit just doesn't want to do it. So part of the skill with my clients at the initial stage is standing in your standards. In other words, sticking by your standards, standing in your standards, knowing that, okay, this guy is just not serious. So let's leave room for men that are serious. And the truth is, at the initial point, that will take some time because you've entertained the wrong men for so long that it's going to take time for your energy, your vibe to transition to start attracting men that are actually intentional and serious. It's like if you've always been, if you've never taken exercise and fitness seriously, you can't expect to get the same results as someone that has been exercising for 6+ months, a year, in 1 week. It's not possible. You're going to have to leave room for your body to adjust. It's the same way you need to leave room for your mind to adjust. But it starts by stopping what you're currently doing, which is entertaining men that are not serious, men that aren't, interested in being intentional with you, and men that just don't want to be in a future with you. Something else, and if you have any questions for me, drop it in the question box. I'll be glad to answer. Like I said, this is just a Q&A. Something else that I see a lot is when you are saying, oh, maybe it's not my season to meet my husband. Actually, as Christian women, it's important to know that, yes, there's a time and season for everything under the sun, but there is also a season that you're currently in. It may not be a season for marriage. It may be a season for meeting men. It may be a season for going on dates. It may be a season for understanding what it looks like to get into the right relationship. So that's why, you don't want to just say, oh, because I'm not meeting men, it means it's not my season for marriage. Actually, when it's your season for marriage, you will not only be meeting men, you will be going on dates. Men will desire commitment with you within the first 90 days of knowing you. When you start experiencing that, it means that you are actually in the season and approaching the season of marriage. And commitment with men starts with the little things. He first commits to calling and texting, which is why consistency is really important. Then he commits to seeing you. Then he commits to, checking in on you, making you a part of his routine. Then he commits to being your partner exclusively, and that evolves into engagement and marriage. That's how seasons happen. Seasons don't just land on your head. For example, winter to spring, when you're looking at the 4 seasons in Europe, for example, winter to spring, there's a transition period. The snow thaws. It starts getting, the leaves starts to, the plants start to bud. The weather gets lighter. The daytime gets lighter sooner, and so on and so forth. You don't just land in spring. You don't just wake up one morning and it's suddenly hotter than it was the night before. But that's how a lot of you are dating. You're assuming that your season for marriage is just going to land on your head. It doesn't work like that. And I've seen a lot of Christian women make this mistake. It doesn't work like that. There's a transitionary phase. You may be in your spring, and spring looks like a change. You may start noticing, and this thing, because I'm such a fan of gathering data from my clients and just really understanding how to get them results as quickly as possible. So I spend quite a bit of time just reviewing client results, reviewing their progress, reviewing patterns that I've seen with my clients that transition from single to married in a year, getting into a relationship. And commonly amongst all of them, for the years I've been doing this, they go through a transitionary phase. And it's just the nature of life. It's like saying, and I'm spending time to explain this because I see a lot of Christian women make this mistake, which is just an error in the way it's taught. It's like saying you wake up and you are giving birth. It doesn't make sense. You get pregnant, then you carry the baby for 9 months, and then you give birth. And even within that 9 months, there's the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, all with its own symptoms, all with its own, experiences. It's the same with getting married. You don't just wake up married. There's a season where you're going to be meeting men. That means that you're in a season of visibility. And what you should really be focused on there is which men are seeing you. Okay. And how can you make sure the men that are seeing you match the kind of man you want. And then there's a season of, volume. So when I say volume, I mean you will notice that the numbers of men approaching have increased. And they've increased in value, which is the next season. So they've increased in value. And then that's where you really actually want to be vetting. And then comes, the decision to commit to that person, and you get married. So there's a season. There are transitionary phases to this. You don't just wake up, somebody's wife. You have to first be somebody's new acquaintance, then be their date, then find yourself in a relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend, then be their fiance, then you get married. Okay, so just because it's not your season to get married doesn't mean it's not your season to date. It doesn't mean it's not your season to meet men. It doesn't mean it's not your season to get into the relationship that is going to get you married. Because even when you're somebody's exclusive partner, you're going to learn things about them that will further shed light on whether or not this is somebody you can commit to. So there are seasons in dating to marry. And it's important to know which season you're in. And from what I've described and you're watching this live, feel free to drop it in the chat to let me know the season you're in. And if you have any questions and you're watching this live, drop it in the question box. And then something else that I've seen that I would like to shed light on as well is attraction in dating. You want to be attracted to the men that you are entertaining. There's no point in talking to a guy that you are physically repulsed by. When you're attracted to someone, even things that they do that you find that you would naturally find irritating, you don't. You think it's cute, you're not bothered by it. Why? Because there's a chemical response going on. You find this person attractive, you're drawn to them. So physical attraction is really important. And in as much as it can grow, there needs to be a root. What I mean by that is there needs to be a foundation. There has to be something that you find interesting. There has to be something that inspires your curiosity for you to explore. And in exploring that, you will come to realize whether or not it can grow or not. So I'm not a fan of encouraging you to date men that you're not attracted to. If you know you like height, why are you dating a short man? If you know you're a fan of men that take care of their health, why are you dating somebody that is clearly unhealthy? If you know you're attracted to men, I don't know, it could be anything. Men that are articulate, or that you're a sapiosexual, so you're somebody that is stimulated by intellectual conversations. Why are you talking to somebody that can't be bothered about intellectual conversations? There's no point. So what you're attracted to is actually meant to help you to recognize your husband. But a lot of you are using the opposite way. You're like, oh, although I like tall men, I'm just going to date him even though he's short. You really want to give room for what you want to find you. And you can't do that if you're always preoccupied with what you don't want. So when you're dating, because you know what you want, you also have to get comfortable being single. Okay, that's something else I work with my clients on. That's why I'm confidently able to help them get into a relationship and get married within a year without going on odd dates up and down. I don't approve of quantity. I'm more interested in quality. So if we're talking about going on dates, let it be worth your time. If we're talking about getting into a relationship, let it be based on the fact that you have qualified this person in a way that aligns with your standards. If we're talking about giving this guy attention, and your curiosity and space in your life, let him earn it. That way, you are also naturally making yourself more visible. You're making yourself more attractive. You're making it easier for the kind of men you want to find you. So it's important that you are clear around what you find attractive. And this is something that you want to do with the help of the Holy Spirit. So what I mean by that is you want to understand how God has impressed on your heart about certain qualities to look out for in a partner. And you'll know because there are just some qualities that you've always had since you've started being interested in getting married. There are some qualities that have just stuck. You've always been attracted to, for example, I'll choose something simple. Maybe you've always wanted a guy that was, taller than you. Or you've always wanted somebody that was older than you or something. It could be the weirdest things, but they've stuck. And I always say it's because when things stick to your spirit, they take the longest to leave. So if it's in your spirit, what I mean by that is if it's deeply rooted in your being, there's a reason it's there. So you want to investigate that. Is that from God or is that from your trauma? Is it something that you created as a standard based on the environment you grew up in, what you were exposed to, what you experienced? Or is it a standalone standard that you got from God that speaks to you? Because it's going to help you get married. If you look at scripture, how Ruth married Boaz is different from how Esther married the king, is different from how Eve met Adam, is different from how Rachel married Jacob, because everyone's path is different. But you have the tools on your path that will attract your husband to you. With Rebecca, it was important that she carried that jar. And it wasn't only the day that Abraham's servant saw her that she was carrying that jar. She was there as usual, as scripture says, going down in the evening to get water. With Esther, for a whole year, she was working on beauty treatments and special foods. It wasn't the first day that she did that she saw the king. For Rachel, it wasn't the first day that Jacob saw her that she knew that was her husband. But Jacob was already drawn to her. So you have to understand you already have the qualities that will draw your husband to you. So instead of trying to hide those qualities, because that's part of the problem, a lot of you are not, which is why with my clients, I also like to do purpose work. So when I say purpose work, I help them to align more with the work God has called them to, because I know that will just naturally put them on the path to get married. Because there's no way God has called you to purpose, and marriage is part of that work, that you will not meet your husband on that path of purpose. There's no way. An example that comes to mind in scripture is Deborah. In as much as she was married to Lapidoth, in as much as we don't hear very much about Lapidoth in scripture, in Judges 4:4 it says that she was a prophet and she was the wife of Lapidoth, and leader of Israel at that time. That's how the scripture describes it. So first of all, she was a prophet of the Lord. And then she was a wife, but she was also a wife, right? So in her purpose work, she was also married. So it's important for you to recognize that this, not paying attention to the work God has given you to do this season may very well be the reason why you're struggling to meet men that see your value. Because there's no woman that is discovering her purpose, that is paying attention to it, that does not shine. It's not possible. Think of any woman that you know, whether publicly or personally, that is on a walk of purpose. She's not dull. She's interesting. People are drawn to her light. People want to be around her. People are inspired by her essence. And you want to be that kind of woman. So for me, it's really important that my clients are discovering their purpose, and part of the work I do with them is helping them to uncover what their purpose looks like. Even if they don't have a clue, that's my job, just helping them to understand, what does your purpose look like? Where is God putting you this season? Let's look for clues here and let's uncover and unravel, because that is going to increase your visibility in a way that isn't tangible and cannot be defined. It's going to give you that je ne sais quoi factor that just makes you irresistible to people, and more specifically to your husband. So my advice to you is pay attention to the purpose work God has given you. It's going to unleash a lot of things apart from your husband, opportunities, greater awareness of the work you're meant to do, greater influence, and then it's also going to obviously, align you with the person you're meant to marry and just make you more visible to the right men. Do we have any questions? Drop it in the question box, and forgive my voice. I'm fighting off a cold. But do we have any questions at all from what I've said so far? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've seen that can be helpful to you guys. But if this has been helpful so far, tap the hearts. If you have any questions for me around dating, men, relationships, feel free to drop it in the question box. Something else that I could talk about is understanding where doctrine, or rather, let me put it this way, is understanding how to listen to God on your own. So from a Christian angle, it's important that you're clear on how God speaks to you. And this is something I teach all my clients, because I just want you to know how you hear from God, so that when you're making that decision to get married, you can hear from God by yourself, as opposed to relying on spiritual figures in your life, because they can also get it wrong. Prophet Samuel nearly anointed the wrong king. He thought the Lord would go for David's eldest brother, and God said, no, that's not who I want. So it's important for you to know how God speaks to you, so that you can hear when he is speaking. You can hear when he's interrupting your mistake. Some of you think based on the fact that, I just finished prayers, or, this man looks exactly like what I've made my request known to God about. This is my husband. Not necessarily. You need to learn that intimate place of going to ask the Lord for confirmation. In fact, something I teach my clients is, as soon as a guy comes into your life, you better take him to the Lord. Go and introduce him formally to Jesus, because that way you're giving your spirit the opportunity to get ahead of your flesh, so that you can hear and you can, be in a space where you are receptive to what the Lord is showing you. And then something else to realize is you don't know when you're going to get married. Let me say that. You don't know when you're going to get married. So you want to make sure that you're available for marriage to come into your life all the time. Okay? You want to be available for marriage to come into your life all the time. Just like you don't know, if you're looking for a job now, you don't know the day you're going to get hired. But you want to always be available for that opportunity to find you. Whether it's applying to a certain number of organizations a day, networking, following up with previous applications, looking into certain companies you're interested in, sending cover letters and so on. You're just constantly making yourself available for that opportunity. And there's this quote I really like that says, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. So you may not know your marital date, but you know it is coming, and that should be enough. So you want to be in the place of preparing for it, whatever that looks like for you this season. And my work with my clients is making sure that they are not only prepared, but they are positioned. Some of you are so focused on the preparation that you're not positioned. You think about, in preparation, let me spend more time, working on my fitness, my health. Let me spend more time developing my finances. All those are good, but how are you positioned? And positioning means, where are you creating the opportunity to meet men as you're doing these things? It's like if you're applying for jobs, you don't just say, let me work on my resume. Let me clean up my profile on LinkedIn, without actually making any connections. No, you position yourself accordingly. You join the groups. You reach out to people. You go for the events. You do both together. You partner both in one. It's the same with dating. You can't just be like, let me just prepare, and then the man will just somehow find me. It doesn't work like that. You need to be positioned. So you need to ask yourself, where is my visibility? In other words, how am I making myself being seen? Where am I making it easy for men to see me? And how am I also making myself available to meet men? Okay? Because some of you go to places, you'll be going up and down to different events. And to be honest, I'm not a fan of saying, if you want to meet Christian men, go to the church, because you're a Christian. You interact in the world every day. You can meet that man in the gym. You can meet him at the grocery store. You can meet him at a networking event. You can meet him at a wedding. You can meet him anywhere. Just because he's a Christian doesn't mean you meet him in the church. I'm not a fan of saying, if you want to meet a financially stable, affluent man, you should only go to private clubs, paid events, and so on and so forth. Sure, that helps. But the wealthy men also get hungry. So they go to the grocery store. Wealthy men also have social lives. So they also socialize. Wealthy men also have relationships. So they also go for events, whether of friends, family members, so on and so forth. So my theory is you can just meet these men anywhere. I've had my clients meet men that have paid for them to travel, help them sort out whatever issues they're having financially or whatever, just volunteer to help them pay for certain things. And they met these men online, or they met these men through friends, or they met these men at events. They're not hiding single Christian men somewhere. Okay, they're everywhere. Just like you as a single Christian woman is out in the world, interacting, being, involved in your environment. So my strategy is just about leveraging where you are in terms of how you show up. What are you doing to contribute to your environment? How are you making a conscious attempt and effort to be available to be connecting with men? anywhere you go. And it's interesting because I see this with clients, because it's not a physical switch. Sometimes it's mental. There's the physical, there's the spiritual, but there's also the emotional, which is unfortunately seriously neglected, even though the place of the soul, which is mind, will, and emotions, can change so much in a person. Scripture literally says, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. That means that your mind has the power to transform your entire life. So if you're not even paying attention to your mindset, you're going to really struggle for these strategies to work for you. Whether you join the apps or you start going for events that are private, paid for by, curated communities, you will still not meet people if your mindset is on shutdown. So that's why I encourage and I work with my clients on cleaning up their mental space as well, because that is where we need to change your impression of self so that other people can see you for who you are, including your husband. He can see you as a wife. He can see you as a woman. And he may not first identify you as a wife. He may just be attracted to you and he doesn't know why. I think the way this thing is taught in the church, unfortunately, they make men look like they are all-knowing, or, you find yourself idolizing the idea of your husband, forgetting this is a human being. He also has his struggles. He's not perfect. He is going on his own journey. There are certain things he may not know. So when he sees you, he may not even know why he's attracted to you. He's just drawn to you. He wants to explore his curiosity. Then that curiosity develops into desire, and that desire develops into devotion. And next thing you know, he wants to marry you. Seen it happen with clients, again and again. It's not every time that you just meet a man that says, I want to get married. Sometimes you are the reason that he makes that decision, because you are the season. So what I mean by that is, and I've said this to a couple of clients, so I'm saying that you are the embodiment of why he decides he wants to get married. So as a woman that knows she's called to marriage, you really want to reflect not just on your physical appearance, not just on your spiritual practices, but mentally, how are you creating the opportunity to really accept the fact that this could happen? And a lot of you are tied down mentally by trauma. Maybe you've been in a failed relationship, a failed marriage, or you grew up in an environment where you were spoken down to. You didn't feel protected. So naturally, it just makes sense that you will attract men that are also unserious, that are also going to talk down to you, which is why you need to build your mindset. It's interesting because with my clients, when we just work on changing their mindset, because I have steps and strategies for that, I like to look at the way my clients are thinking about dating, because I know action starts from thought, right? I need to think I'm hungry before I go and get something to eat. I need to think I'm sleepy before I go and sleep. So action starts from thought. So, I like working on how you're thinking about dating so that when I give you the strategy, it can actually produce results. So if strategies aren't working for you, if you're saying, oh, Tolu, I go to all these places, I don't meet men, then it's a mindset issue. There's something in the way in which you show up in these spaces that is making it difficult for you to attract the kind of man you want. And it's really simple. Like, I'm not even joking with you guys. I've been doing this for so long. It's really simple. Like, if you know how to curate what you're looking for in a guy, and that's where my hobby list comes in, which is basically just a list of qualities that I help my clients curate that fully embodies the kind of man they want. And then we go through each and every quality on that list to see how they can create opportunities to attract that kind of man and see where there is a gap. Because that gap is the reason why you haven't met him yet. And I always say you get to choose your husband. It shouldn't just be because, oh, this is the first guy that I've met that ticks my boxes, that means I'm going to marry him. No, it should be more than that. It should be, this man is somebody that I'm not only attracted to, but also someone that I can build a future with, somebody that has shown up for me, somebody that I can stand beside, it should be more. There should always be more. And you won't see it in just one man. So that when you are picking your husband, it's not just based on the fact that he's the only man you've seen like that. So I'm a fan of helping my clients to understand by experience how to get in the place of meeting multiple men that match the qualities they want. And then something else I will say, and if you have questions, drop it in the question box, if you're watching this live. So I'm giving you guys the opportunity here. Drop it in the question box. I won't answer questions outside this live. But which is why with my clients, I'm really clear on helping them to understand. Like when we're looking at the qualities that you want in a partner, how are you carrying those qualities yourself? And, it's not every man that you see that has those qualities that would necessarily be the right fit for you. We need to get to the space where you are seeing and when you're going to see men that have the qualities you want, so that even if they don't match with you, even if, say, you see 10 men that have the qualities you want, a good 3-4 of those men may not be attracted to you, or may not be available, or you may not be attracted to them. So when you are dating men, when you are dating to actually meet men you find attractive, it's a completely different experience. It's not every man you meet in that space that will be attracted to you, and it's not every man you meet in that space that you'll be attracted to. But those are the first 2 phases. And then you get to the space where you meet men that you find attractive, they find you attractive, and then there's alignment, and then there's, availability for commitment on both ends. That's where you want to get to. And that's the work I do. Just getting my clients first in the space of, let's only be available to men that are in alignment with what you find attractive, and then let's raise that alignment to they also find you attractive, and then let's hit it with you are both on the same page in terms of desiring to commit for marriage, and you can both see how that resonates on a spiritual, emotional, and physical scale, as well as financially and sexually. And that way, you are now in front of your husband. So you see how I've kind of articulated this. It's not like you just wake up and, ooh, that's my husband. No, there's a process, and you have to make yourself available for it. Do we have any questions? Is this helpful? Tap the hearts if this is helpful. Just so I know. And if you have any questions, drop it in the question box. So I'm seeing one here in the comments. I'm currently single. Type of men that are coming aren't up to a godly standard. They say they are Christians, but they are not godly. However, I keep rejecting them because I know what I want. I'm on dating sites. Okay, so the issue here, from what I can see from what you shared, there's something about your standards that isn't aligning. It's either you're checking for too many standards too quickly. So maybe you're assuming, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing because I don't know your story, but again, I'm just going to give you a couple of, options here. It's either you're checking for too many standards too quickly. You're trying to ascertain if someone is a Christian by how often they go to church, or if they serve in the church or something like that, some kind of random standard that may not translate to what an actual Christian is. Because Christianity is about relationship with God. How is God involved in their lives? And the truth is, sometimes you may be more spiritually mature than your husband. I had a client that I'm trying to think how to round up her story. So she was not meeting men that were in alignment with what she wanted, and I knew her issue was just she was too in her masculine. We just needed to create a feminine dating profile that suited her desires, but we also needed to make sure she was available for the kind of men she wanted on those apps. So what I mean by that is she wasn't discounting men based on something random. And anyway, we went through that process. She met her fiance, they started dating, but he wasn't matching the spirituality that she wanted. And I remember having sessions with her on understanding that, listen, you're not God. This man is a Christian just because he's not a Christian in the way you want. Now, mind you, he has a relationship with God. He's involved in, he values worship and so on and so forth. But just because it's not at your level doesn't mean that he's not a Christian. And once she got past that, because it was really hindering her ability to open up to him. So once she got past that, she started to see that, oh, he is, I am learning things about him. He's a deeply spiritual person, and so on and so forth. So it was her mindset that was blocking her ability to see this man's qualities, and now they're getting married. So that could be an issue here. Something else could just be that maybe your standards are fine, but you are not vetting men quickly enough. So it's either you're moving too slow or you're moving too fast. So in the sense of not vetting men quickly enough, you need to know the right questions to ask, and you need to know what to look out for. And then if it's not that, then maybe your profile isn't just attractive enough to the kind of men you want. So you're going to have to adjust your profile accordingly. And when you're building your dating profile, this is something I tell my clients. You're not building it for yourself. You are building it for men. Okay? So you are looking at the pictures and you're filling in the information as if it's a woman that is going to read it. No, it's a man that is going to look at that profile. So you need to build your dating profile conscious of the fact that you're building it for men. You're building it for the kind of men you want to attract. So that could be part of the problem. And then it could also be that, you're rushing the process. So maybe you're not spending long enough on the dating apps. You're not giving enough room to actually meet more men. Some of you get too attached to dating. And what I mean by that is, if one guy frustrates you, you give up for another 2 months. That's not going to be very helpful, is it? Because, for example, if you are talking to one guy, if you're applying for jobs and you get one rejection and you say, I'm not applying again, you're not going to get a job. Okay. So it's the same way with dating. You're going to have to give room for the men that are rubbish, because that's just part of the process. It's like saying, if you don't get into, I don't know, maybe you're applying for a membership, or you're applying for, you put down an offer for a house. It's like saying, if I don't get a house, I'm going to stop. That doesn't make sense. You're going to have to keep going. So if you don't date, it just means you don't want to get married, because that's the process. So part of the work I teach my clients is learning not to get attached through the dating process, so that they can date in a way that resonates with who they are without getting frustrated or tired by the process. Okay, so I'm seeing here, I have met even Christian men who seem to have the qualities I want, but once you bring up no sex before marriage, they don't align with it. So that means they're not Christian men that align with what you want. It's really that simple. It's just that simple. There's nothing to be upset about there. Then you bring it up and they don't align. I'll tell you another client. One of my clients that, she had this particular issue that you just mentioned, and a lot of Christian women deal with that. But also, guess what? There are Christian men that also have this problem. So one of the issues I see a lot of you do is you think you're the only one with that problem. Even in the comments now, I'm seeing, people resonating with that question I just said. You're not the only one. Just like you're also not the only one waiting for marriage to have sex. But the mistake you keep making is thinking that you're the only one. You have to understand, you're going to come across men, whether it's sex or no sex. It may not even be, they may have no problem. And mind you, just because you're waiting for sex to get married doesn't mean that's your husband either. You want to make sure you have conversations around sex. You want to make sure you do the test and so on and so forth. Because there are some women, in fact, I wish I could find that post. I did a post years back that this lovely lady sent me. She had married a man that wasn't open to sex before marriage, got married to him. Turns out he wasn't even sexually available, sexually attracted. There was just a lot of problems around sex. So just because he says no sex before marriage doesn't mean you don't talk about sex. It doesn't mean you don't ask questions about sex. Sex is something you want to be able to discuss with your partner before you get married to them. So having said all of that, it's just part of the equation. There are going to be people that just don't have the qualities you want. And that's fine. So the sooner you accept that, the better for you. You can't take it personally because you're not the only one having that experience. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? you find men that don't want sex before marriage the same place you find men that want sex before marriage. They are not hiding somewhere. You just have to meet more men. Okay, it's really that simple. It's just a game of numbers. I don't know why you guys think. Do you think celibate men are hiding somewhere? They're walking down the street just like you. They're eating just like you. You just have to increase your numbers. So that's why I'm such a fan of making sure like my clients increase opportunities to meet men. Because some of you, your problem is you're just not meeting enough men. And so you assume that the first man that comes along that thinks is the right fit, you just, that you think is the right fit, you just enter, you jump inside because you've been emotionally starved. So you enter one relationship that God did not even send you inside. And then you find yourself lost. That's how that happens. Let's see. So you meet men that are celibate the same place you meet men that are not celibate. So the client I was talking about, for example, she wasn't into apps, but she met her boyfriend on an app. It was just a question of changing her mindset, which a lot of you discount, but has actually helped my clients a lot. Changing her mindset, because when you change the way you think, you change the way you talk, you change the way people see you, you change the way you interact, which also will change the men you attract. So she started dating a guy that matches her values, including, Christian values. No sex before marriage, wanting to stand by the word, prayer, the whole thing. So you just have to understand you are going to meet a whole bundle of men. And some of them are just not going to have what you want. Even if you meet a guy that says no sex before marriage, he may not be someone you find attractive. So, that also is somebody that doesn't qualify. So you just have to look at this you have to look at this through the lens of what is for you is for you. If you have the mindset of, men that are waiting for marriage don't exist or they are scarce, well, guess what? You're not going to see any, because that's how you think about it. It's like saying, if you have the mindset of there are no opportunities in this company, well, you're never going to apply, are you? Because you don't think there's an opportunity for you there. So if you keep thinking, there are no men that do this, there are no men that do that, you're not going to meet them. It's so interesting. One of my clients, for example, before she started working with me, she had this mindset that, she stays in a foreign country. So she had this mindset, which I've seen with a lot of foreign clients, which is not true, because, some of you that stay in foreign locations think, there are no men here. But I've had clients that consistently get married in the UK, the US, Ghana, Canada. I say Ghana. The UK, the US, Canada, where else? The UK, US, Canada. I'm missing one country. I can't remember right now. But the point I'm trying to make is there are people getting married in those locations. So you can't say, it's because of my location. That's not true. That's not true at all. Because I know clients in those locations that are getting married, that are meeting men, that are going on the dates. So it has nothing to do with your location. It's your mindset. And it's the lack of strategy. You know how scripture says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. That's currently your problem. That's one of the options anyway. Now let's see. So with this particular client, she was saying, Ireland. That's the country I was missing. She was saying that there are no men here that want to pay for dates, take you out, know you properly, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, that's just not true. Because I know for a fact, because I've also worked with clients in those countries that have gotten married, I know for a fact that that's not the case. We just need to change the way in which you're approaching this. And now she knows that's not true, because guess what? She's meeting men that want to pay for dates, that want to take her out, that are willing to travel down to see her. So it's not even, you people, you need to just change the way you're curating your options. Test his libido without actually doing it. There's no way to do that. You just have to have faith in the Lord. And I'm not going to lie to you. How are you going to test something if you don't taste it? You just can't. But you can have conversations around sex. You can have conversations around boundaries. You can pray to God about it. You can do medical tests. There are also medical tests that are available. You can do your due diligence. It's the same way you trust God when you're going for an opportunity. How do you know you won't get fired? You don't. You just trust that the Lord will see you through that opportunity. Or when you're relocating, how do you know it's the best decision? You don't. You're taking a step of faith and you're trusting that this is what God has said. And just because, something else I will say here. Just because someone has a high, good libido sexually, doesn't mean that's not a determinant of what to expect in the foreseeable future, because anything can happen. Medically it's been shown that after kids, couples, or scientifically it's been proven that after kids, couples may struggle to keep up the same sexual routine. Health plays a factor. Who knows? God forbid, a lot of things can happen. So just because someone is sexually, active and able at this stage in life is no determinant for the future either. So you just have to, choose your own route and trust in the Lord. That's the honest truth. You can't, because even if you test it, that's not a determinant for, even if you have sex with him, that's not gonna be a determinant for how it's gonna be in the future. No one can see tomorrow. So it's not so that isn't a guarantee either. Can lack of finance make a potential future husband not consistent or committed? No. There are poor people getting married every day. So no. That's just an excuse. Do we have any other questions? Has this been helpful? Let me know. Just tap the hearts. But just generally from what you guys are saying, when a man wants to commit to you, he will commit to you. It's not hard. I see it all the time. All the time. Okay? He will commit to you. When he starts speaking very long English, when they tell you, oh, this, that, or the other, it's a lie. He doesn't want to do it. Whatever it is, it may not be commitment. It could be a couple of other things. He doesn't want. Men are so simple. He doesn't want to do it, and you have to be comfortable with that. Part of the reason a lot of you put up with nonsense and you just stay in the place of entertaining what isn't good for you is because you don't believe what you want is actually available to you. But if you knew that, and this is something I teach my clients, this is something I help them to understand, because when we start working together, we're going to change a couple of things that's going to really change your comfort zone. So I've seen it with clients all the time within the first month, like trying to adjust to, because I put you through my process and I have some strategies that I put in place, just trying to find their footing with that. And in doing that, all sorts of things are going to be coming up for me to see, because I know those are the reasons you're single. And I know those are the reasons you're struggling to meet the kind of men you want. But specifically to you listening to this, you need to understand that what you want is available to you, but you have to be available for it. You can't say, I want a guy that has this, that, and the other, and you're dating men that don't have it. That's the first thing. But secondly, you have to embody what you want. You can't say, I want a man that takes care of his fitness, that takes care of his health, but you are unfit. You walk 5 minutes and you are panting. Why would he be attracted to you? You can't say, I want somebody that is financially disciplined, but you are somebody that is always broke. It doesn't make sense. He won't find you attractive. So it's important that you balance out what you want with what you're available for. Okay? How are you available for what you want? Some of you say, I go to all these events, I don't meet people. And this is just because you're not making yourself available to meet people. I was talking to a client just last week. I'm working with her on meeting men in person. And honestly, since we started our work together, the men that she's been meeting in person has skyrocketed. I didn't change where she was going. I didn't say start going to this place, start going to that place. I just showed her how to show up differently in environments that she was going in. And the other day she met like 4 guys. For an event that she's gone for like more than a couple of times, and she's never met anyone. She went there the other day and she met 4 men. Didn't change a thing in the environment, but changed how she showed up in it. So sometimes the problem isn't that you're showing up to places, it's how you show up to those places. That's the real problem. And then you want to expand your options. I like to create online dating strategies as well as in-person strategies, because I don't know how this man is going to come into your life. I just know he's going to come into your life the same way people come into your life. It's either they meet you in person or through friends, family, or in-person events, or they meet you online. But one thing I do know is if you're not there, they can't meet you. So, because I've seen this thing work in so many different ways with clients. I've seen clients that have been in the same workspace, didn't look at each other that way. My client simply changed up how she was showing up. They got married. I've seen clients that, maybe aren't open to online dating, try it a different way. They meet people that turns out they have the same circle of friends, they have the same circle of contacts, but they just happen to meet online. So my advice is you better open up your options. This is a digital age. If you are not opening up online dating, online communities as an option, you are shooting yourself in the foot, because that may very well be the route God wants to use to introduce you to your person. And if the apps aren't working for you, it's because you're not using them properly, because they're working for other people. Do you know how many people, go and Google it, in this day and age, the majority of couples that meet online? Times have changed. So if you're not opening up that avenue, you are literally making it more difficult for your husband to find you. And if you're meeting terrible men online, that is just showing you that you are currently in a place where you are not attractive to the kind of men you want. It is not the app's fault. The app is just giving you data faster. It's like if I call a friend, it's faster for me to talk to her on the phone than for me to walk down to her house. I'm just getting my feedback faster. So that's why, with my clients, I like looking at what kind of men are you attracting, because that is giving me feedback as to how men are seeing you and what we need to tweak and change and adjust, and where we need to, shift your current dating approach. And sometimes it's always something very subtle. It could be as simple as, I remember with one client, it was that she was involving her family. One of the things we straightened up was she was telling her family too much too soon. I just removed that off the table, pushed it a bit forward, and she met her husband. That was just the little tweak she needed. Another client, it was that she didn't want to change her location, in terms of expanding her options in where she was meeting men. Turns out her husband was in a different location. So it's always just the little simple shifts and adjustments. So don't discount the little things you do, because that's probably, how scripture says, the little foxes spoil the vine. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. That's what you're doing wrong. I always say, because I'm seeing a question about how about if you don't like them physically. I addressed this before, but I'll address it in a different way. So I have a concept I call the strong 70. So out of 10 qualities you want in a guy, 7 of those qualities should be available to you, and they must include what is a non-negotiable. They must include a non-negotiable quality. So if you're telling me I'm not physically attracted to him, but he has everything else, then that's not a strong 70. That means that is not the right person. That's a very strong indication that isn't the right person. Why? Because attraction is not something that can be negotiable. It's either you're attracted or you're not attracted. Attraction can't be negotiable because it is not, you can't quantify it. It's either it's there or it's not. If they ask you why you're attracted to that guy, it's going to be very difficult for you to explain why. You can say, oh, I like his smile. But then another guy with the same smile can be looking at you and you're not attracted to him. So you need to look at, if you're not finding them physically attractive, that's not your husband. Why would God give you a man to be intimate with sexually that you are not finding sexually attractive? I mean, he won't. So yeah. How can you tell If a man has daddy issues through his actions, it's really that simple. If you want to know what issues anybody has, just look at their behavior. That's all. That's just it. If somebody is insecure, look at what they're insecure about. There's probably some trauma there. If somebody is angry, they have anger issues, look at what they get upset about. It's really that simple. Behavior will tell you where somebody has problems, because it's like you're pressing a wound. If somebody presses an injury on your body, you're going to flinch. Why? Because it's sore. Because it hasn't healed. Because it's damaged. Because it needs attention. So it's that simple. When you're getting to know someone, if you notice that they have anger issues, or they're sore about particular topics, or they're a bit insecure here, that's where they have problems. And how you know that in yourself is look at where you try and hide. That will tell you where you have your own issues. So what I mean by that is, where are you negotiating how you're available to men? Are you always trying to control conversations with men? Are you always looking for problems? That means you have trust issues. Are you constantly doubting their intentions? Are you struggling to believe what they say? Are you the kind of person that struggles when it comes to letting go and letting men lead? That means that you're controlling, you have issues with, relying on other people. So wherever you're trying to hide, or wherever you're trying to control, is usually where you also have problems, which is also why you're probably attracting the kind of men you're attracting. So yeah, do we have any final questions? But pretty much, this is just, to give you all a different angle on how you look at dating. And then if you want to go deeper, if you're ready to do the real work of uncovering what your problems are, getting a different perspective on how to actually date to get into the relationship that will lead you to marriage, you want specific strategies as a Christian single woman that will help you date the kind of man that you want, that matches your values, then click the link in my bio and first have to apply to work with me. That's if you want to work with me, of course, one-on-one. We'll work together for 6 months, and the goal of our work in those 6 months is to put you in position and alignment to get married in a year. So you can click the link in my bio and first have to apply. And if you're the right fit, then we'll have a conversation. I'll outline the plan of action that we're going to be working on for 6 months to make sure that you're aligned to be married in a year. Okay? So do we have, link is in my bio and first tap to apply. I don't see any other questions. So I'm taking, and tap the hearts if this was helpful to you. I'm taking it that there are no other questions here. Just giving it a second. I don't see any other questions. Okay, guys, this was fun. I'll talk to you all again soon. Make sure to share this live with a sister friend. And, I look forward to receiving your application should you want to take this a step further and do the deep work for us to get you married in a year. I'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye.